Hi, and welcome to the Integray How To series. In this video, we'll walk you through the basics HTTP methods in Integray. We'll explore the essential HTTP methods used in API integration, such as post, get, put, patch, and delete.
In this video, you'll learn about the purpose and functionality of each HTTP method. Then, you'll get a detailed setup process for the post method, which will serve as a basis for configuring any other method. And finally, you'll see practical demonstrations of how each method works. The get method is all about retrieving information from the server without changing anything. Think of it as you asking for data without touching or modifying it. In Integray, you'd use get when you want to pull details like user information or a list of products. The post method is what you use when you want to create something new. This could be adding a new customer, creating a new task, or registering a new user in your system. It sends data to the server, and that data is processed to create the new resource. The put method is like saying, I have the whole thing here, just replace what you've got with this. You'd use this when you want to fully update a resource. So, if you have a record of a user and you want to update all their information, you'd use put to send the updated user data to the server. Patch is for partial updates. Instead of sending the entire resource like put, patch lets you only change certain fields or sections. You send just the pieces that need updating, and everything else stays the same. Delete is straightforward. It's used to remove a resource from the server. If something is no longer needed or you want to get rid of a record, you send a delete request. Now that we've covered the theory behind how each method works, let's dive in and configure the post method step by step. First, we have the input schema. This defines the data structure that will be passed from the endpoint to the task. Next, we move on to payload mapping. This step is crucial because it defines the rules for parsing the incoming JSON data into the task's input schema. This ensures that the correct data flows into the task for processing. With the input now configured, let's move on to the next section, where we'll set up the task that will be triggered when the endpoint receives data. First, you'll configure the start task. This is the task that will be initiated whenever a post request is received at the endpoint. You'll also see an option called Start Task Async. If you enable this, the endpoint will respond immediately without waiting for the task to finish. Otherwise, it will wait and only respond after the task is completed. You can also set the Save Input Data option, which will allow the system to store the incoming data for future use. And also, you can define a custom fail message to provide more clarity in case of a failure. Now that we've set up the task section, let's move to the final part, the output section, where we'll define what the endpoint will return as a response. So select the output schema, which will define the structure of the response of the endpoint. If you enable the option to save output data, the result of the task will not only be returned as a response, but also saved to the database. There's also the option to include system data in the response. If you enable this, the task result will be encapsulated in a data element, and additional system fields will be added. Next, we move on to the output step. This is the step where data will be selected from the data structure and used as the endpoint's response. After that, we configure the output mapping. Here, the incoming data is transformed and routed to specific fields in the response, following the predefined rules. Now that everything is set, we can go ahead and save the endpoint. Once saved, you can publish it, making it live and ready to use. Now I'm going to show you how each method can be used. Let's get started with the get endpoint to see what we are working with. I triggered the endpoint off screen, so now we can see what books we have in the library. It's almost the whole series of Harry Potter. To add the missing one, we'll use the post method, which we will trigger through Postman. Here, we have a simple JSON structure that matches the payload mapping. Now when we start Postman, we get a finished success response. And when we go back to Integray and click on Data Snapshot, we can see that the missing book was added. In case of a mistake, you can rewrite some values using the patch method. To demonstrate this, we are going to update the shortcut in her name to the full name. So now, when we run the post request through Postman, We can already see in the endpoint response that the name was successfully changed. Now when we go back to Integray, after clicking on the history view, we can see that the task was successful and the name was updated. The next method to try is put, which will replace the entire library with another one. To perform this, we are going to open Postman and use the put method. Here, we have a new list of books. When we trigger it, the list is replaced with the new one. In Integray, we can see that the new list replaced the old one. Lastly, we are going to clean everything up using the delete method. This will delete a book by its ID. When we open Postman and send this request with an empty ID parameter, we will end up with a clean library. Now, when we open Integray, we can see that all the data was really deleted. And that's how you perform the endpoint methods.
I hope you've learned everything you needed. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. See you soon in the next video.